up to the stage, I'm going to bring our moderator, Jen Brooks, who is the CCO of Collective Curates. Come on, girl. Give her a round of applause.
Everybody. Hello, hello.
The first person on our panel, we have a writer whose book was turned into a movie on the Hallmark Channel, an author who is determined to educate us on the seriousness of climate change and climate justice, and a California native who enjoys writing fictional stories about women. Let's welcome to the stage author of A Gingerbread Romance, which was seen on Hallmark Channel, Lacey Baker. Yes. Then we have Mary Anais Hegler, whose work has appeared in New York Magazine and Rolling Stone. And lastly, an award-winning author who writes to bring out the sweet, sensual, contemporary romance, Sharyl Lister.
Mary, don't forget to turn your mic on. And if you can talk. All right, everybody. Hello, welcome. I'm so excited to see y'all. All right, so we will hop right into it with these questions. I'm so happy to share space with these beautiful authors. So thank you guys so much for being here. So my first question is about the love we have for some beautiful black men. All right, so my question is, I love a story that gives us examples of good black men. We found one in Warren in No Reservations, in Uncle Harold in Troubled Waters, and in Seth in No Place Like Home. Tell us about the good black men in your life and why you work them into your stories. And we know who's gonna start.
And I'm gonna try to keep it short because anybody who knows me knows how much I love my husband, because I am blessed to live the life about the ones that I write. So I write about good black men, and my husband is my rock. He is my supporter, my champion, and he couldn't come today, but he always has my back. And I'm just gonna give you one little short example of what he does, because we love playing. After 30-something years, we still play. I had to go to New York for an event, and we went to the Waldorf Astoria. And, you know, if anybody knows, coming to America, you know, I was clapping my hands and said, "Rose bearers, where are the rose bearers?" So I sent him a picture saying that, and he laughed, and he said, "What? They don't have your roses? What are you talking about? He's like, you're the queen. Where's your roses?" So fast forward, I get home, and I'm knocked out and done because, you know, late Sunday night. He gets up early on Monday to go to work because this is pre-COVID. And he says bye, and I'm like, good, okay, bye. So I wake up a little ways later, go to stand up, and there are rose petals strewn across the floor leading to our bathroom and taped on the mirror, placed all around the sink. And he said, because a queen should always walk on rose petals. Yes. So he kidnaps me, I kidnap him too. So we do all of those things, the little things and big things. So that's why I'm able to write about these men. And if you read any of my books, you will see pieces of this good black man in there, because I want people to know that black love not only exists, but it thrives.
Damon Arthur, did you hear what she said? Did you hear? I was going to tell you, take notes. Take notes. Okay. No, my answer is similar to Sheryl's in that my husband inspires a lot of my heroes that I write in books. I've had readers ask me all the time, which book is closest to your husband? And there is one that's particularly close. It mirrors our story. But generally, every trait that I put into a hero, I am able to do that, not just creatively, but also because I live it through my husband. Case in point, he is working today. He is on the clock today, but he is also sitting right here with me. And he goes everywhere with me. He is my assistant. He is my rock, inspiration. Whenever I am writing and I'm looking for anything for a man, and I'll say, well, because I don't drink, so I'll text him, hey, what should he drink? And he's like, well, tell me about him. Tell me his personality. And then he gives me a drink, or he gives me their car, so he's a very integral part in my writing. And also, I'll say my father. Growing up in the church, the older ladies in the church would always say, you marry your parents. You're going to marry your parents. And I was like, no, I'm not marrying my father. But now I've been married for 30 years. And so the things that I see in my husband, I say to my mother all the time, oh my Lord, this is daddy. So I learned from my father what to expect in a good man.
I love y'all's answers. But for Uncle Harold, if you open Troubled Waters, which is my debut novel, you'll see that it says in the very beginning, for Uncle Harold. So I really did have an Uncle Harold. He was legally my cousin, but he was really my uncle. And with that character, I wanted to write about my favorite uncle. We talk so much about the crazy uncle, the drunk uncle, the creepy uncle. I wanted to talk about a good uncle, because a good uncle can change the trajectory of your life, and they do exist. I think uncle and niece relationship can be very sacred and special, and so I really wanted to depict that. And I started dreaming up the book in the spring of 2019, not knowing that by the summer of 2019, my Uncle Harold was going to pass away. So that made writing that character all the more special, because it felt like I got to preserve him in his memory. And there's a lot of differences between who he was as a person. Like, he did have his own children, he was married, but his spirit is very much encapsulated in that character, and I wanted to share him with the world. So it's been very gratifying that now the book's been out for about 2 months, and I get to meet readers who have fallen in love with Uncle Harold, and that always makes me so happy, because it really is his spirit. He was very funny, he was caring and generous, and he would also call you out when you were trifling. So, yeah.
And that we need, because sometimes we be a little trifling.
All right, thank you. So my next question is, I love the nod to the twerking class and no reservations, because as a black woman who can't quite get it right, I felt seen in that moment. But then it made me think about what you guys do for fitness and self-care. So can you share a little bit about your routines and what keeps you sane?
Okay, so for me, most people, my readers know that I've had back surgery, several of them. So it has, kind of curtailed my working out, but I love weight training. It's like my favorite. I can't stand cardio. I hate it with a passion. But so I love weight training. So that is like my mode. So when I get straightened out, that's where I'll be back. But as far as self-care, I am all about me time. I make my hair appointment every 2 weeks, and I go get my pedicure every month. I get my massages every month, and I take myself to lunch and spend time with me, because you can't pour into anybody else unless you pour into yourself. And that was another thing for my husband. When our kids were growing up, our daughters, he would say, you need to go take a book. You like reading. Go take yourself to lunch. I'm like, I can't go to lunch by myself. He's like, yes, you can. And don't come back for 2 hours. You cannot come back before 2 hours. And so from that moment, it was like, oh, wait. Oh, I like this. And so I have continued it. And so if you don't take time for yourself, I encourage you to do it, because that's what keeps me sane.
Yeah, I love this question, because my activity routine is very much tied to my creativity routine. So I ran 4 miles this morning. I love running. I get lost in thought, and I never thought I was going to be that girl, but right around 30, it was like, you know what, just try it. And I was like, oh my God, runner's highs are real. And so I've stuck with it, even in this humidity. And I also am a big fan of yoga and hot yoga. And it really does unlock the creativity. I'm able to think through problems a little bit better when I just get into my body and out of my head. It's like, what I'm dreaming of is a yoga class where they let you write at the same time. Because I have so many eureka moments when I'm in a yoga room.
Actually, my husband and I walk in the morning. We walk around the track, and I walk really slow. He's always ahead of me. But when I'm walking really slow, just like she said, I'm thinking through the stories. I'm listening to a book all the time, listening to a book while I'm walking. But I'm also thinking through what book I'm writing. So it does help creativity. And I'm good with the exercise, because my doctor is like, this is a good thing. I'm glad you're doing this. If I can make it fun, I am not a fan of grudge work. And so walking has been fun for me so far. Self-care, I'm not great at self-care. I'm trying. I'm getting better. I'm really not great at it. I am that person that is pouring into everybody and doing all the things for everybody, and doing all the things for myself, and this job and that job. I work a full-time job at the courthouse, and I write full-time. I tell people that all the time. I have 2 full-time jobs. They're like, how do you have it's 2 full-time jobs. And so I am getting better with deciding what my self-care is. Right now, it's really just watching my favorite movies and putting everybody else out while I'm watching my favorite movie. Generally, I don't have to put them out because they don't like black and white movies. So.
That all work. So there you go, some self-care. Thank you guys for that. I want to move over to troubled waters for a bit, but everybody can feel free to hop in. So in troubled waters, Corinne was eager to fight against global warming. It was very different from her grandmother's experience with activism. So my question is, how does activism look now compared to the activism of our ancestors? And why is it important to share those stories?
Yeah, so I think in troubled waters, the main conflict between Cora's activism and Corinne's activism is that Cora's was not by choice. Cora was a 5-year-old girl chosen by her father to integrate the schools in Nashville, Tennessee. She had nothing to do with it, and it was very traumatizing for, well, she had everything to do with it, but it wasn't her decision, and so it was very traumatizing for her. And so then she gets to, the only thing that she felt made that experience okay or made it acceptable was that, well, my daughter won't have to do this, my granddaughter won't have to do this, and then here she is with her granddaughter deciding, I'm going to take on a risky act of activism to protest global warming. And that's the big conflict between the two of them. But I think the activism of our elders and our ancestors is actually a lot more similar to our activism today. It's changed in the sense that we have different types of technology, but so do the systems that we're fighting against. They have those exact same systems of technology. Some laws have been put into place that would make the types of activism that our elders did a lot more dangerous and possibly impossible. I'm thinking of laws like critical infrastructure, where if you are somewhere near something that the state calls critical infrastructure, like a bridge, they could say, absolutely not, that's a felony, and you go to prison. But I also think that, especially in terms of climate change, there's so many things that we could learn from previous struggles against systemic oppression, like the civil rights movement, that doesn't get learned because the climate movement is extraordinarily white, and white folks tend to think that they don't have anything to learn from black folks, and that is a problem.
I think for me, it looks different for me personally, is in that using writing to discuss these sensitive topics, because, like she said, we could, if we did things in the way that our ancestors used to do them, a lot of those things are illegal now. A lot of those things we won't be allowed to do. And so I think in finding a way to still get the message out, for me, and I think for a lot of other writers, is incorporating these topics into our stories. And then that's our form of activism. We're giving you all of the information and educating you on whatever topic that is. And that's our form of activism.
I'm just going to add one little line to that. I feel like that we're more able to shape the narratives ourselves this time than our ancestors were. That we have more of an ability to shape the narratives and have our voices heard. Where before, like you said, there weren't very many books by us, about us, for us, right. And we had to rely on someone else's narrative. While now, we can shape it and tell our stories ourselves.
Thank you for that. So I'm moving over now to No Reservations. One of the themes was Sisters of the Heart. So that was one of my favorite takeaways. Who are the Black women that you all hold dearest to your hearts? And tell us your thoughts about the importance of adult friendships.
Oh my goodness. I have so many people who are sisters, but I do have my couple of core sisters who we pray together, we cry together, we laugh together, we do all of that, and they are my sisters of the heart. And one of them, she actually sent me a text this morning telling, to encourage me about today. So we do that, and it is important because so many times we sit here and we hear about women who are competing against one another. But to have somebody in your corner who will cry with you, who will encourage you, is just priceless. And we need to nurture those kind of relationships. And I do all I can to do it, whether it's just a phone call or a text, or because I'm extra, I will go and buy something and they'll just say, I'm sending y'all something, be on the lookout, and they'll just get it. And that's just me. Or bake something. I just like to do that. So I think if we continue to uplift, encourage our sisters, that you got to nurture these relationships. They're important, critical.
I don't have any biological sisters, and so I do have sisters of the heart. My one best friend we met when we were 3. I always stop the story at we met when we were 3, but when she tells the story, she says we met because we were playing in the mud. But I told her stop saying that. I told her at this big old age, don't tell nobody that no more. But the difference in our friendship now, I value that friendship so much now because of how far we've come together and the things that we've come through together. And I think that we're better able to encourage each other and be there for each other now because we knew each other way back when. There's another lady at my church who I've known her for a long time too, not since we were 3. But again, that's a really integral relationship for me because I am not a people person. So friendships have not been my strong suit. But when I find a person, I'm with that person. Like, that's my person. So those two are my person. And it's funny because I started writing women's fiction, and I'm writing all these books about friendships. And my editor's like, you do these friendships really well. And I was like, I don't know why. I ain't got no friends.
That's the best way to do it.
I know you asked about friendships, but I think some of the most important Black women in my life are, again, my aunts. So just like an uncle-niece relationship is really special, I think the aunt-niece relationship is really special too. And also my cousins, they're beyond friends, right? Like with your cousin, you kind of know, I can say anything to you and nothing's gonna break this bond, really. Like it would have to get really bad for that to break. And I do have some friends in my life who I think, have crossed that bridge into play cousin, where it feels like this is my cousin. I have a lot of Black women in my life that I've picked up through, we either went to college together, we used to work together, we've been, working in the climate space together for a while, which again, very, very white. So the Black women see each other across the room and we go, let's talk, right? Like, so I've made so many friends through those types of, I guess, trauma bonds, you might call them. And also just made some wonderful friends here in the city of New Orleans since I moved here a few years ago. So,
all right, I'm gonna move it over to you, sis, because we gotta talk about these sweet nothings and I am losing it over. All right, so when I read say, there is room in my heart if you want it, I just about melted. Okay, where did that come from?
I have no idea.
Was it a personal experience?
No, Mr. Arthur has never said that to me.
Come on, Mr. Arthur. How do you get in the headspace to write something like this? Because it was indeed a banger.
Thank you. I watch TV a lot. And I say that that's my self-care, but it really is. It really is the thing that brings me down. I'm a morning person, so I'm usually at my computer between 3 and 4 in the morning. And then I'm still at my computer at 5 in the evening. And so when I turn all of that off and I'm just sitting there watching TV, I need to watch stuff that is going to fuel me in some way. And everything fuels my creativity. Whatever show I'm watching. I watched Andy Griffith the other day, and I was like, this might be a story. And I'm just typing my little notes in my phone from Andy Griffith. So I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of Hallmark, a lot of romantic movies. But those lines don't necessarily come from that. Those lines come from more like Love Jones and Brown Sugar, and so those things, and I watch them over and over again. They just keep me in that mood. They just keep me in that space. And then sometimes once I get to know the characters, it just sounds like something they would say. Like, it sounds like at that point in the book, he needed something sugary to say. So.
And it was sugary. Do you guys want to add anything? Any sweet nothings that are your favorite? Anything that you're inspired to add when it comes to love or romance? Any good words that y'all heard that I can tell my boyfriend to say to me?
I can give him a whole list if he got time. It's like I said, because I've got 30 plus years of doing it, like she said, my mind is always working, because I'll be in the tub with my, candles or whatever. I'm supposed to be taking a bath and washing up. My husband will yell over, "Stop writing in your head and wash up." I know that water is cold,
Yes.
but I think that's when those scenes come to you, the sweetness of those times, those quiet, intimate moments where we're just kind of hanging out. And then I'll just say, "Ooh, that's a good line." He go up, and he's like, "What?" It just pops in my head. So I put it in there, and like she says, when you get to know your characters, and sometimes you have something for them to say, and they're like, "No, baby, I got something else to say over here." And then you read it, and you're like, "I like yours better." So they just come to you when you know those characters.
Well, I'm not. Troubled Waters isn't a romance story, but it is a love story in the sense that it's about familial love and black love. And I'll just add, Nikki Giovanni once said that black love is black wealth. And I think it's more than that, actually. I think it's black healing and black power. So I love that we have so many black romance writers.
I love it too. All right, this is my final question for now, so take your time. There are instances of loss in each of your stories. In No Reservations, the ladies lost their best friend. In Troubled Water, Corinne lost her brother. And in No Place Like Home, our girl Ella lost her mom, her man, her job, and it was Christmas time. The common string to me is that we don't have the time that we think we have. How does this relate to your books and the topics that you choose to write about?
Well, I think writing about climate change, you kind of always feel like you're writing against the clock. In addition to the novel, I put out a children's book last year, and when the children's book was coming out, they were like, "It's going to take 5 years," and I was like, I don't know what the planet's going to look like in 5 years, girl. Like, I can't even picture that timeline. But I think, writing is always some sort of act of memorializing, at least to me. And preserving the world as we see it and trying to show it to us in new ways. And that's always some sort of race against time, I feel like. And so, fiction is where you can bend time in different ways. You can go back in time and show trends that weren't really apparent at the time. And I also, I started thinking of Troubled Waters before my uncle died, but the night he died was when I actually sat down and wrote it, because I realized everything isn't forever. So.
When I wrote Snow Place, there's a character in the book, Aunt Addie, and it was right after this lady at our church, Miss Addie, passed away. She passed away that summer, and I started writing Snow in like September. And I knew I was going to put her in the book because I did want to memorialize her life. I did want to remember her, remember the good times with her, because every day it was like slowly hitting me that we would never see her again. Like, we would go to church on Sunday and she wouldn't be there. And she wouldn't say, "Girl, what you cooking for dinner?" She wouldn't say, I got a taste for a pork chop." Miss Addie loved pork chops. But I wouldn't hear that anymore. And when I missed a Sunday from church, she wasn't gonna call me and say, "Well, how y'all doing? Is somebody sick?" All of that was gone. And so when I wrote this story and I knew Aunt Addie would be in the story, Ella had to have that loss. And I was a little nervous about starting the book with Ella remembering that loss, because it's really heavy. It's a really heavy topic, and it's at Christmas. And she lost her man, and she lost her job. And I was like, "Oh Lord, this child, she needs all the blessings." But I think that there is always a lesson in the loss. I think that remembering the impact that that person had on our lives is the lesson. To have been in a relationship with somebody and have that love and that respect for them, and to be able to memorialize that after they're gone is important. And it's important to remind us to live in the moment, to remind us that tomorrow is not promised. So I think that was my idea in writing this story. It was about living in the moment. It was about Ella deciding that you don't have to stop grieving your mother, but you do have to live. You do have to live tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So that was my thing.
And I think for me, because I've experienced a lot of loss, like I think like most people have, we all have lost them, and I've lost friends. I have lost both my parents, and my mom was like my bestie, my road dog, and my reader. She's the one who instilled the love of reading for me. So in sharing that, it's just remembering we don't have tomorrow is not, like you said that tomorrow is not promised, but we have to keep living and keep doing and not put off all the things. Oh, I'll get to it. Oh, I'll get to it. Oh, I'll call him when. Oh, I'll call him when. Is that we make it purposeful, that we intentionally do those things with other people, do the things that we say we're going to do, and do it. Because my first book, it took me 20 years to write it. Because I kept telling my mom, ooh, I got this story, I have this story. She's like, stop telling me and write the book. And it wasn't until she passed away that I sat down and started writing. And that's my only regret, is that I didn't write it when it had it. But I mean, when I wanted to write it, there was no books like Us. But finally there were, and I wish that she could have been to see, because she would be sitting right front and center right here. She'd have met me here and be sitting here. So I have decided after that, it was like, no, not putting it off. If I want to call somebody, if I want to send somebody something, if I want to just do something, then we're going to do it. So, and that's what I wanted these girls. And if you notice in No Reservations, it was like Joy, she needed to do what she was going to do. Rochelle needed to step out on taking that risk of love, because love is always a risk. And do it again. And Diane with wanting a child. So just that's what was the theme. It's like everybody just do it anyway.
Well, I appreciate all of you so much for being in this moment with us on the stage, for sharing about your books. All of the books are wonderful. They all move me in a very different way, and I'm just grateful to be on stage with you guys and to give you the opportunity to tell everybody about how amazing they all are. So thank you very much.
Thank you. She's raising her hand. The writing process.
What was the writing process like is the question, and we have 2 minutes.
Writing process looks different every time I write, but my writing, sometimes the plot will come to me, the characters will come, and I'm like, ooh, this person will have this person will have this person will have this. And writing No Reservations was very different for me, because I'm typically a romance writer. So I have the hero's point of view, the heroine's point of view. This was 3 very different women going through 3 very different things and still making it cohesive. So it was harder to write the story, but I loved the transitions and how it came together with doing that. So it was more of me getting my cards. Thank you to Farrah Rashan for the board with my stuff. I still use that, and I get note the Post-its, and I would write the scenes, and then I'd like put them, in order of how I needed them to go. And I had to switch some things around, add some things here, and do that. And that was very difficult. It's like, okay, but you got to do this and connect it to the next scene, to the next person, to make it flow. So, yeah.
My process was really, let's just watch a whole bunch of Hallmark movies again, like, because that's the fun part. And while I'm doing that, just writing notes. This is the character. Let me write all the things I need to know about this character. This is the Christmas tree scene, because I always have a Christmas tree scene, because I love Christmas trees. And, oh, there's a dog here. Oh, this would be a cute dog. Well, let's spend 25, 30 minutes searching dogs. And what kind of dog do we want here? Like, that's how this story came, in just in pieces like that. I knew the key characters. I knew who they were. Everything else was just fitting in all of these other pieces. Lots of Christmas pieces, lots of Christmas food, because you can't have Christmas without food. So it was really easy. This was really fun. This was a fun book to write. I've written a lot of difficult books, but Snow was really fun. It took about 6 weeks for the first draft.
All right.
Okay, unfortunately, we have to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for coming to this chat. Please give a round of applause for our amazing panelists.